Hey, hi guys. We're going to go ahead and get started with solving quadratics using square roots. So, to do this, when solving a quadratic equation with square roots, you must put a plus and minus in front once you have taken the square root of the number. So that just lets me know that there is a positive of that answer and there's also a negative of that answer. So when solving with quadratic equations using square roots, you will set it up. You will get the x squared by itself. So isolate the x squared. To get rid of a squared, you need to square root both sides. So the square root of x squared is just x. And the square root of 121, remember we're going to put a plus and minus. The square root of 121 is a perfect square, which is 11. This plus and minus just tells me that x equals 11 and x also equals negative 11. So this is just a little bit of a faster way to write it. Okay, example number 2, x squared minus 8 equals 0. So to start this, I need to get the x squared by itself. To do that, I need to add 8 to both sides. Okay, so add 8 to both sides. This 8 cancels out. I get x squared equals 8. Now I have to square root both sides because I have the x squared by itself. So x equals plus or minus. 8 is not a perfect square, so I'm going to need to do my factor tree. Let me back up real quick because I need to do my factor tree first. So 4 and 2, 2 and 2, these are dead numbers. So square root of 2 times 2 times 2, looking for a pair of 2's. There's one right, whoop. There is one right here. So I'm bringing that on the outside. So it's actually 2 square root of 2. So that means that x equals square root of x squared is x. Square root of 8 factors 2 or simplifies to x plus or minus 2 square root of 2. All right, moving on to example 3. My x squared is not by itself. I have a negative 4 here. So what I'm going to do is divide both sides by negative 4. This negative 4 will cancel each other out. So I get x squared. Negative 36 divided by negative 4 gives me a positive 9. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides because my x squared is isolated. So square root of x squared is x equals plus or minus square root of 9 is 3. All right, example 4. I have 1/2 x squared equals 32. To get rid of this 1/2, I need to flip the fraction and multiply both sides. So if I took 1/2 and I flipped it, that gives me 2 over 1. Well, 2 divided by 1 is just 2. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 because what you do to one side, you always have to do to the other side. So 2 times 1/2 is 1 to give me x squared. 32 times 2 gives me 64. Now that my x squared is isolated, I'm going to square root both sides. So square root of x squared is x. Square root of 64 gives me a plus or minus. 64 is a perfect square, which is 8. So x equals plus or minus 8. Example 5. All right, gonna need to isolate my x squared. By doing that, the first step I need to do is move this plus 1 so I can get the 3x squared by itself. So add 1 to both sides. That cancels out. I get 3x squared equals 5 plus 1, which is 6. Now I need to divide both sides by 3 to get the x squared all by itself. So 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. And 6 divided by 3, which is going to give me 2. Okay, x squared is isolated. Now I need to square root both sides. Square root of x squared is x equals, I cannot take the square root of 2 and it does not simplify because 2 is a dead number. So your answer is going to be plus or minus square root of 2. All right, same thing with example 6. I need to get this 1/3 x squared by itself. So my first step is going to be to subtract 5 from both sides. This 5 cancels out. 32 minus 5 gives me 27. Equals carry down my 1/3 x squared. Same thing with this fraction. Whenever you have a fraction, to get rid of it, you need to flip it. So I'm going to flip 1/3 to give me 3/1. 3 divided by 1 is just 3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. This cancels out. I get x squared equals 27 times 3, which is 81. Square root both sides now that x squared is by itself. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 81 is plus or minus 9. All right, here's where things get a little bit different now. I have parentheses, x plus 5 squared equals 21. I cannot move my minus 5 over because that is also being squared. So to get rid of that square, the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and square root both sides because I can't move anything in it. So if I square root this left side, that just cancels out my squared. So I can take that squared away and it's going to give me just x plus 5. I can't square root 21. It's not a perfect square and it does not simplify, so I'm going to leave it as square root of 21. I still have to solve for x. So to solve for x, sorry, don't forget your plus and minus here. To solve for x, I just need to subtract 5 to both sides. So x equals, cancels out there, negative 5. I can't combine it with the square root because negative 5 is not under a square root. So it would be negative 5 plus or minus square root of 21. Just need to put it in front of it. So that would be your answer. All right. So example 8 looks a little bit like example 5 or 7, but now we have a number in front. We have this 4 in the front. Before I can square root it, I need to get this whole x plus 1 squared by itself. So to get this 4 that's being multiplied by the parentheses to the other side, I'm going to need to divide both sides by 4. This cancels out. I get x plus 1 squared equals 100 divided by 4, which gives me 25. Now I'm going to square root both sides because my squared is by itself. So my square root gets rid of my squared. I get x. I get x plus 1 square root of 25 plus or minus 5. Okay, so now I need to move my 1 to the other side to solve for x. So subtract 1 from both sides. Here's where you're going to have to make two equations, okay? So I'm going to have this cancel out. I get x equals negative 1 plus or minus 5. So now I need to actually separate it. So it is negative 1 minus 5. X also equals negative 1 plus 5 because I can solve both of these for x. So if I did negative 1 plus 5, I get 4. And then negative 1 minus 5 gives me a negative 6. So I have two answers here. Okay, so when you get this simplified, you are going to need to do it all the way out and break it up to where you do have a positive and a negative. If you have any questions, please join the Google Meet and have a great day.